What's up everybody on YouTube, AJ Rez back to discuss another video, and today we're going to be recapping NFL Week 10. Week 10, man, that's actually crazy guys. We're already in the double digits of this year, in this season. Wild to me. Only 8 weeks left now in the regular season until playoffs, but that's a beautiful time. And like I've said in my previous recaps, we're starting to see who are some of the true contenders, some of the people who are falling off, some people who are playoff locks and things of that nature. But with that being said, before we get into the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. I post videos about sports, lifestyle, and pop culture. So with that being said, let's go on and get into NFL Week 10. Alright, so the first game that took place on Thursday Night Football was really a stinker, to be honest. The Chicago Bears won this game, but they also won in the draft. Of course, they had the Carolina Panthers first round pick in 2024. They have the opportunity to get the first and second pick in 2024. So really, the Bears were just playing for that kind of. And now they have a 3-7 record, winning 16-13 over the Panthers. We really don't have to talk about this game long at all, honestly. In my opinion, man, I'm hoping that Bryce Young can get things together. He didn't have a bad game. I mean, he had a meh game, I would say. Completed 21 out of his 38 passing attempts. Only had 185 passing yards. No touchdowns, though. I mean, really not too much to be said. It was a stinker game. Really didn't watch too much of it because, like, why? But yeah, the Bears won this game. Here's another stinker game. The last global game that took place in Germany between the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. The Colts won 10-6. A whopping score, I know, right? Nah, I'm playing though, but yeah, man, just really bad in New England right now. Mac Jones was benched. Just a lot of questions, and a lot of people are stirring up the question if Bill Belichick will continue to be the coach after this season. It's a tough conversation considering his legacy, but you're judged on what you have done recently, and the Patriots, they've been pretty mid to below average recently, and especially this year, they've been bad, having a 2-8 record now. And for the Colts, they now are 5-5. A 500 record, they're for sure gonna try to compete for a wild card spot in the AFC. Of course, being in the AFC South with the Texans and with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but yeah, a game that was ugly, but someone had to win. Let's talk about a pretty good game right here that took place between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. And the Baltimore Ravens, honestly, they should have won this game, but they didn't. They were up 31-17 in the fourth quarter, but the Browns were able to make a run and ultimately win the game on the game-winning field goal. The Browns now have a 6-3 record, and now the Ravens are 7-3, both in that AFC North, which is super stacked. Honestly, this whole division can make the playoffs, but only time will tell with that. Deshaun Watson had a pretty solid game, I would say. He had 213 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. They were able to get people like Amari Cooper involved, had 6 receptions for 98 yards. But also that Browns defense. The Ravens and Browns, they both have elite defenses, and ultimately the Browns were able to win the game. For me, if I'm a Ravens fan or something like that, or if I'm analyzing the Ravens, I would say that they need to continue to stop taking teams lightly, and they really should have won this game. Like I said, you can't afford to slip in the AFC. Of course, you have teams like the Chiefs, we already know, who are going to contend, but in that AFC North, people are still going to pick the Bengals to be farther in the playoffs than the Ravens, because we saw them go to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So, but Lamar Jackson, he had 2 interceptions in this game. Has to be smarter for sure, but I think that the Ravens, they'll bounce back. There's no time for them to slip up. They gotta keep their foot on the gas. And the Cleveland Browns, man, you cannot take them lightly. Their defense is great with Jim Schwartz in there as defensive coordinator, and they're for real, for sure. This next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to get their 6th win of the season, beating the Green Bay Packers 23-19. The Steelers have been outgained yards wise in all of their games, but still have a winning record. It's crazy, man. Mike Tomlin for sure is the best coach in the league. That defense is insane in the league, but their offense is so unwatchable. That's the crazy thing about the Steelers being so good right now. It's ridiculous, but it's a testament to how great of a coach that Mike Tomlin is. The Green Bay Packers, man, we have a lot of questions about Jordan Love. I feel like they should try one more season with him because, I mean, of course, this is his first year starting after sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, but it's just looking tough in Green Bay. They now have a 3-6 record. Just a lot of things to talk about there. Matt LaFleur, is he on the hot seat? I don't know about that because he's had success, of course, with Aaron Rodgers, so definitely tough with the Steelers, man. That's the biggest takeaway from this game. They just continue to find ways to win, and you love it, man, especially if you're a Steelers fan. This game right here was a butt whooping like no other. The San Francisco 49ers tapped the Jacksonville Jaguars, winning 34-3. This game was really viewed to be a good game, but obviously the 49ers, they had different plans, and of course they now have Chase Young on that defensive end along with his college teammate in Nick Bosa, so that defense got even better over the trade deadline, over the bye week that they had in week 9. The 49ers, after having that 3-game losing streak, they put a stamp and dominated the Jaguars and now have a 6-3 record, and the Jaguars also now have a 6-3 record, but the 49ers, they're proving that they're back for sure and are now healthy. Of course, Trent Williams played in this game and Deebo Samuel as well. George Kittle had a really good game too. He had 3 receptions for 116 receiving yards and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey, this is his first game as a 49er not scoring a touchdown after having a touchdown in 17 straight games, but they didn't really need him to score, obviously, winning the game 34-3. Brock Purdy almost had 300 yards. He had 296 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. The 49ers, they're right back in that rhythm. They're for sure, if not the best, the second best team in the NFC. And for sure a Super Bowl contender. They had that little 3-game losing streak, but every team, I would say, throughout the year has their moments of adversity, and that was theirs. But I think that they're about to get into a good rhythm, and the 49ers send a message. And for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think that they'll be okay, but they need to start winning because the Texans in their division, they're right behind them. And the Texans won in week 3 against the Jaguars. So the Jaguars better come with it for sure. We might as well talk about the Texans real quick. That was a good segue into this game. They were able to narrowly beat the Cincinnati Bengals 30-27. Really an impressive win. I wanted to put CJ Stroud in the thumbnail again because, man, he's just playing great. He's easily an MVP candidate, and one can make the case that he is the leading MVP candidate, but of course he's a rookie. A lot of politics involved with that, so I don't think that he'll win MVP, but easily a Pro Bowl quarterback this year and Offensive Rookie of the Year most definitely. The Texans, they're playing really good. I mean, of course, like I said, I am a Houstonian, not a Texans fan, but I fully support CJ Stroud. I mean, how can you not support him? He's a really good quarterback, man of God, just really poised, really playing elite football. Never too high, never too low. Had 356 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception at the end of the game, but it didn't bite the Texans. The Texans defense stood strong. Of course, Tyler Boyd for the Bengals had a drop, which really should have been a touchdown. One can make the argument for, but the Texans, they're playing really good football, man, and it's really inspirational. D'Amico Ryans is a player's coach. He's the type of coach that you love to play for, so that's really good for them. Devin Singletary also had 30 carries for 150 rushing yards and a touchdown. Noah Brown had 172 receiving yards. Texans, they're playing really good, man, and the Bengals, I think that they'll still be okay. I think that they'll for sure make the playoffs one way or the other. We know Joe Burrow. I mean, we know who he is for sure. He had 2 interceptions in the game, but that was uncharacteristic. They'll be fine, I feel like, but this was a really good game. The Texans, we gotta stop sleeping on them, man. Here's a game in the NFC that took place between the Minnesota Vikings and New Orleans Saints. The Minnesota Vikings were able to get their 6th win of the season, winning 27-19. They've really been on a roll, of course, since trading for Josh Dobbs, but really in the past month and some change, they've been winning games after starting 0-3 or 0-4, I believe. They won 5 in a row, maybe 6 in a row. I have to check, but they've been playing really good and inspirational football. Joshua Dobbs had 268 passing yards and a touchdown. The team is just really playing good, even despite not having their best wide receiver, arguably in the game, Justin Jefferson being out right now. They're still playing good football. TJ Hawkinson, one of the better tight ends in the league, had 134 receiving yards and a touchdown. They're just playing really good football, and of course Derek Carr also got hurt in this game, so praying for him. But Jameis Winston played in this game, and he played a Jameis Winston type of game for sure. Threw 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions. He'll give you those for sure. But I mean, for the Saints, they're still 500, so they have a chance to certainly win the NFC South because it's still wide open between them, the Buccaneers, and the Falcons. But the Vikings, they're playing really good football in there, and they for sure have a chance to be a wild card in the NFC, or maybe even contend with the Lions depending on how things go. Speaking of another NFC South team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Tennessee Titans, winning 20-6. They now have a 4-5 record overall, and now the Titans have a 3-6 record. Baker Mayfield had a pretty good game, threw for 278 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Mike Evans had 143 receiving yards and a touchdown. Just a really good win for them after losing to the Texans in that wild game in week 9. A good bounce back for them for sure. Will Levis, I think he's kind of coming back to life. Didn't really have the best completion percentage ratio game. Completed only 19 out of his 39 passing attempts for 199 passing yards. Derrick Henry only had 24 rushing yards. A testament to how good the Buccaneers defense played in that game after recovering, like I said, from that week 9 loss. But really a game that you would expect the Buccaneers to win, and the Tennessee Titans, they for sure have a lot of questions going forward. I think that Will Levis has the potential to be a really good quarterback for them, but they have to fill a lot of holes for sure. This next game was a thrilling one between the Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Chargers. The Lions were able to win 41-38. Moving to a 7-2 record overall, and now the Chargers have a 4-5 record. It was a high-scoring game for sure. Both defenses really didn't show up that much, but it really didn't matter ultimately as the Lions were able to play good football. Jared Goff completed 23 out of his 33 passing attempts for 333 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Played really good. David Montgomery had a really good game, had 116 rushing yards and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 8 receptions, 156 receiving yards and a touchdown. He just played really good football and complimentary football in Detroit. And going over to LA in that game, in the Chargers, man, I would say Justin Herbert, he had a really great game as well. Completed 27 out of his 40 passing attempts for 323 passing yards, 4 touchdowns and only 1 interception. I mean, that's a really good game. What can you ask more of him? Keenan Allen had 175 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Just really came down to the end ultimately. But with the Chargers, I really feel like that Brandon Staley, he's for sure on the hot seat. They can't make a little run going forward in the remaining games of the season, which is going to be hard in the AFC to make the playoffs. I think that he's for sure gone. And watch for people like someone like a Jim Harbaugh or other candidates to have a crack at the Chargers job. But it's tough, man, because the Chargers, they really have all the pieces every season, but they either deal with injuries like a Mike Williams or something like that, or just not able to execute plays going down the stretch. This next game, we got to see the return of Kyler Murray after being out for nearly a year from tearing his ACL last season. They were actually able to win this game over the Atlanta Falcons, winning 25-23. The Cardinals got their 2nd win of the season. And Kyler Murray, for not playing in almost a year, he played really impressive, I would say. Had 249 passing yards, had 1 interception, but he was able to move around well. It didn't even look like he missed a beat in my eyes, honestly. And there's been a lot of rumblings, of course, about him potentially being replaced. His contract doesn't kick in until next season, but I think that Kyler Murray, even though he is a smaller quarterback, he's very mobile and makes up for it, and he's pretty accurate, I would say. I think that if the Cardinals, even if they do have a bad season, they can try to draft someone like a Marvin Harrison Jr. potentially if they're able to get that 2nd pick, like I said, over the Bears, potentially potentially. That's a good sign for the Cardinals, I would say. And then James Conner, he only had 73 rushing yards, but he has been pretty productive for them throughout this entire season. And for the Atlanta Falcons, Taylor Heineke did get hurt in this game, and Desmond Ridder had to go back to playing quarterback. And Bijan Robinson, he had 95 rushing yards and a touchdown. But I don't know, like I say about the Falcons, like I said about the Saints and the Buccaneers, they all have a chance to win that NFC South because it's not really that strong of a division. This game between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants was absolute annihilation. The Giants scored 17 points, but they had a garbage time touchdown ultimately, which really didn't matter. The Cowboys won 49-17, now have a 6-3 record. And it's crazy to think about it because the Cowboys outscored the New York Giants this season 89-17. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And of course, people aren't really going to give the Cowboys credit for beating the Giants like that because the Giants, they've been trash all year, if we're just going to keep it lightly. But Dak Prescott, ever since the Los Angeles Chargers games, he's been playing pretty good. I mean, in this game, he completed 26 out of his 35 passing attempts, had 404 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a rushing touchdown as well. So he accounted for 5 touchdowns total. Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb both went off in this game. Brandon Cooks had 173 receiving yards and a touchdown, and CeeDee Lamb had 151 receiving yards and a touchdown. And the Cowboys in this game, they accounted for 640 yards total. So like I said, it was absolute annihilation. There's nothing really to be talked about. Of course, the defense was going to get to Tommy DeVito, forcing him into an interception, a third string quarterback, so really nothing to expect from him. Like I said in last video, the New York Giants, they need to punt this season and try to tank and try to see if they can get Caleb Williams. I mean, I don't know because like I said, the Bears are pretty bad and the Panthers are pretty bad and they have their pick, but only time will tell with that. But for the Cowboys, we're going to measure them and see how they are in the playoffs ultimately. They're a great regular season team, won 12 games in the past 2 seasons, and they might win that many this year or even more. But we're going to measure them going against the playoffs, so we'll see about the Cowboys. Another game that took place was a game between the Seattle Seahawks and the Washington Commanders. The Seahawks were able to win against the Commanders 29-26. Believe there was 5 games in week 10 that were decided by a game-winning field goal, and this was one of them. And shout out to Geno Smith for having a bounce-back game after having a disaster game in the previous week, in week 9. But he had 369 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Really a good game for the Seattle Seahawks, as now they are tied with the San Francisco 49ers for the best record in the NFC West. And for the Washington Commanders, I'm not really surprised that they lost this game, but if we think about it, they could have won this game too, but it is what it is. Sam Howell, he had a really good game. I think that the Commanders for sure have their quarterback of the future. He had 312 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Really impressive from him. There's some promise for the Commanders for sure. I'm not sure that Ron Rivera will be the coach next year, but they have some solid foundations for sure. And for the Seahawks, I think that they're a playoff lock. We'll see if they're able to win the division over the 49ers because like I said, the 49ers are getting back into a rhythm, but the Seahawks, they're for sure going to be a team in the mix in the NFC. This game on Sunday Night Football was one that I wasn't really looking forward to at all, honestly. The Raiders were able to beat the New York Jets 16-12 and now have a 5-5 record and now are 2-0 with Antonio Pierce as head coach. We knew that the Jets, it's tough for them to win. I mean, the defense is going to have to carry them, but I will say that Zach Wilson had a pretty good game. He did throw an interception, but he completed 23 out of his 39 passing attempts for 263 passing yards. So that was solid from them, but ultimately it wasn't enough. And it's just tough, man. We all know if they had Aaron Rodgers, things would be different. And he's targeting a December return, which is insane to say after tearing Achilles and being nearly 40 years old. And he will be 40 years old at the beginning of December. So I don't know how realistic that is. And if the Jets will slip in the playoff rankings, because if they do, it will be pointless for Rodgers to return. But we'll see what happens there. For the Raiders I'm glad for Devontae Adams that they're getting a little bit of success now after firing Josh McDaniels. He only had 86 receiving yards, but still, we know that he's arguably the best receiver in the game. And Aiden O'Connell, the rookie for the Raiders, he played pretty solid, I would say. Had 153 passing yards and 1 touchdown and 1 interception, so that's a good win for the Raiders. The last game that took place for NFL Week 10 was a matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. And one would think that this will be a cakewalk for the Bills. Well, no. And if you watched the game, you saw the Bills had their constant turnover woes again, having 4 turnovers total in the game. Whenever you have multiple turnover games, it's hard to win in the NFL, and this came back to bite them as the Broncos won the game, winning 24-22 in Buffalo. And now the Bills have a 5-5 record. It's going to be really an uphill climb for the Buffalo Bills to make the playoffs because they have a tough schedule. They have to play against the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Cowboys in the coming weeks. Next week they play against the Jets, so hopefully that'll be a game that they win. But they cannot afford to slip in the AFC, just like I was talking about these other teams. The Bills, they're right in that same boat. Josh Allen had 2 interceptions in the game. In the first play of the game, James Cook had a fumble, and he almost fumbled it again in the second half. So it's just really tough for the Bills. But 2 good wins in a row for them, beating the Chiefs in week 8 before their bye week, and then winning this game against the Bills. I mean, they're playing some inspirational football. Russell Wilson had a really good game, completed 24 out of his 29 passing attempts for 193 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. A lot of people were crapping on Russell Wilson last season, but he's been playing really good this year, I would say. And the defense, after allowing 70 points to the Dolphins in week 3, they've really came up a lot. So shout out to the Denver Broncos defense. I mean, they're playing really good now. We'll see if they make any type of push in the AFC. It's going to be tough, like I said, but they're playing some really good football. And for the Bills, man, It's looking very ugly. But yeah, guys, that's all the games that we have for NFL Week 10. Let me know what y'all think in the comments down below of some of the teams that you think who will make the playoffs in the AFC and the NFC. For sure, easily the favorites in the AFC are the Chiefs, the Ravens, you can say. But besides them two at the top, I mean, really, it's fluctuating. And honestly, I would still put the Bengals up there. It just depends. We know that the Bengals, they don't have to win the division to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, we saw this in the 2021 season, so a lot of things going there. And in terms of the NFC, the 49ers, I think that they're back on that same wavelength with the Philadelphia Eagles. It really just depends on if Brock Purdy can sustain playing solid quarterback play and if the 49ers can stay healthy with them. And then the Lions and the Cowboys, they'll for sure be fixtures in the NFC too. But yeah, it's just a lot to talk about there. Teams like the Buffalo Bills, like I said, man, they cannot afford to continue losing because they have a tough schedule going forward, and they will mess around and miss the playoffs if they continue to lose. But yeah, guys, I appreciate y'all watching. Always make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Swaggy and also on TikTok at Swaggy for cooking videos, shorts, content, and things of that nature. More videos are on the way. Appreciate y'all watching these recaps for sure. I always enjoy making them every single week, just talking about the NFL and chopping it up about football. So yeah, y'all stay tuned for more videos in general. Y'all have a good one and keep being blessed.